the future, and they're really taking a lot of those marketing buzzwords like gamification and really showing you the utility that you can use moving forward. So, some of the highlights from that, I think, for me were, they had software there that could understand how hard a consumer was concentrating. So, as advertisers, we spend so much time trying to work out if our advertising message is effective or not. But to actually be able to hardwire yourself into a consumer's brain and see if your message is having that impact is incredibly powerful.
Absolutely, and I really enjoyed the data arena as well that was put on by UTS. The drone that they sent through, I think it was the Wombian Caves.
Yes, fascinating stuff.
Absolutely fascinating, and just the way that it becomes very immersive as you were in that room. I didn't realise they had put that much time and money into producing that, but yeah, very impressive. Even the building that it was, which was the UTS building. They called that a smart building.
That's right. It's a living laboratory. So they have solar panels. The sort of cheese grater facade around the side is actually binary code that spells out the Faculty of Engineering and Information Technology. Yes. They've got solar panels on the roof. They've got water that's being recycled all the way through. Just a fascinating insight into what architecture is going to look like into the future, and that ability for big modern buildings, which, it sort of stood next to some of those old big buildings from the 60s and 70s, which, I guess we'd regard as concrete monstrosities now, but it's kind of putting an eco shine over that sort of style of architecture.
Absolutely, and that whole part of the city is becoming really interesting as well. It was not only those factors in that building, but it also communicated things like the atmosphere and the wind, the pollen level and things like that. So we then communicate to students saying, if you've got asthma or a condition, then don't, perhaps think about staying home today. It was really interesting, and certainly gives you a really interesting glimpse, I think, into our not too distant future.
Absolutely.
As marketers, of course, we also need to think, okay, how do we incorporate our messages into that, but in the same breath without making it creepy and intrusive, which is something that is spoken about pretty openly at the moment in the trade media. Seb, and that was something that Jules and I touched on with your product, Jules. How did you what you're doing with Tribe? How do you overcome the feeling of intrusiveness and so on? And actually, if you can explain a little bit about what Tribe is first.
Yeah, Tribe is a marketplace that connects brands with thousands of citizen influencers. These are everyday Aussies that have built huge tribes around a particular passion or expertise. And they may also include celebrity influencers, but we're looking at anyone with 5,000 or above. And what we do is we put them in touch with each other via our platform. There we go. We've got David on the line. How are you, David?
Hey, how are
David? How you doing?
Are you right there?
Yeah, good. Okay.
Can you hear us?
All good.
Okay?
Can you hear me right?
Yes, a little muffled, but we'll keep going. Jules was just telling us about Tribe. So we'll continue with Jules for a moment, and then David, we'll come and talk to you about Adshel and your experience with mLab.
So yeah, Tribe is we're set to launch literally in the next couple of weeks. We've already launched to the marketplace through mLab.
What a good opportunity that was, Jules.
Honestly, in 18 months, we couldn't have, as a presenting partner, it was invaluable. As a guest as well, and learning from the other presenting partners, it was invaluable.
Yep.
But as someone that was up there showcasing our new platform, we just couldn't in a million years be able to achieve what we did in 5 days. And it's an incredible gift for GroupM to be supporting startups in that way, and also supporting the student labs. It's amazing, foresight for a huge company, global company, and it means a lot. It means a lot to us and FanFuel and Social Status, the two other fantastic startups. But we were launching, and we got through to a third of the whole industry. We couldn't get meetings like that in 18 months, and to be honest, we probably wouldn't even be able to actually get people's time. They wouldn't have opened the doors, even if logistically we could achieve it. So for us, it was huge. And So in terms of the data that you're talking about, Denise, and how you feel like it can be slightly invasive, Faraz, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you're talking about Big Brother is watching and sort of location services, and, you know, when I get into my car at the end of today and I turn my car around, it says my home is 14 minutes away because it knows where I'm driving at that time of the day because my phone has told it.
I think that's useful, so that's not intrusive. And I think that that's the fine line we have to cross. And, you know, I know that David's also, you know, with Adshel, you're also experiencing this sort of question in what you're doing because you now have the capability to be able to recognise someone through a billboard. Now, just because you have that capability, the question is, should we actually do it? So it would be interesting to get your viewpoint too, and, you know, what clients are saying about that and how they manage it.
I think that's right. I mean, look, it's a lot about permissions, right? What we're given permission to do by the audience and what they feel comfortable with. And I think there are different levels of personalization, some of which are more comfortable than others. I think, you know, we've got to explore and keep asking the consumer as to what exactly they feel comfortable with. So if I'm getting displayed an ad which knows that through my purchasing habits that I'm, I don't know, a pizza eater, and therefore there's a pizza offer at a local retailer, that feels just relevant, right? That doesn't feel particularly invasive because it's just picking up on my personal taste. It happens to be me personally that has triggered that, but it's not invasive. I think where it gets a little bit creepy and probably crosses the line is where we start to get, you know, into personal information, use of names or specifics about you as an individual. For example, maybe we've had retailers who've wanted to display information about, we recognise you, we know which dress size you are, and we can talk about, you know, what we've got in stock. Now that gets a little bit invasive, I think.
Especially if you're a guy.
Seb, how are you finding that, and what's the feedback that you're getting from clients about this issue?
Yeah, I suppose from an agency perspective, we always want to serve the right ad to the right person at the right time.
Yes.
And as you know, that's always been kind of an objective of media agencies and advertising agencies.
Yes.
And I think what's happened as time has moved on and we've become more adept at managing personal data, we've been able to sharpen that personalization of the message.
Yes.
And I think, you know, with all things in life, it's about finding the right balance. You know, there is the right way to deliver, mass communication. You know, a spot in the grand final of the AFL is going to reach a lot of people. And if you've got some great creative, then that's a great place to be.
Yes.
But equally, if you're in a very narrow sort of consumer segment or, you know, pet owners, for example, there's no point advertising dog food to people who don't own dogs. So there's a huge amount of wastage. So, you know, using simple layers of data to cut out big licks of wastage, I think is a good opportunity.
Yep.
Obviously, we're all governed by privacy laws, and I think those laws are well protected by the governments around the world and well respected by advertisers and agencies alike. So, Jules, have you got a...
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, I spend a lot of time with young people, and young people are far more open around privacy. They feel, and the ones that I speak to, that they know that having anonymity will come at a price. They understand that life will be a lot cheaper if you are generous with the details that really aren't going to compromise your everyday life. And I, for one, have sort of emotionally, when I hear about them creeping out and knowing stuff about me, I have a natural aversion and reaction to that. But then when I rationally step through it, I don't want the wastage. You know, as Seb says, I don't want to be I don't want them to assume just because the Bachelor is paying it's a 20 to 35-year-old girl. It's me, a 36-year-old father of two. I don't want to see tampon ads. Everyone is a tampon ad, you know, and so that for me is a waste. I'd far prefer that to be relevant. And if I'm going to sit through it, at least give me something back. But that's the new world that we're getting in, opt in. And as David says, that's all that outdoor marketing that Adshel does. It's brilliant.
And perhaps
I think that's dead right in terms of the generational thing. Jules is absolutely right. I mean, there's a sense that I think the modern generation is growing up giving of themselves a bit of data to the world, and in return getting a huge amount of benefit back, and in terms of relevance and in terms of added value. And I look at my own children who are teenagers now, and the way that they interact with the world is exactly on that basis. I will share some personal information, and in response, I will expect things to come to me and find me, rather than me have to go and do a lot of extra work. And I think the flip side of this kind of, it might be a bit creepy. Actually, you know what? There's a generation growing up where it's an expectation. I expect this to be more relevant, and if it isn't, then frankly that's a failure on your part, and I'm just going to blank you out.
I can see comments coming through from some people who are watching us live, which is fantastic. Right to write says teams will do it for credit. So yes, very much what we're speaking about. Seb, you touched on something, and you mentioned this in a Sydney Morning Herald article during the week, where you were talking about mLab, and you spoke about the TV ad in the football. And you did say that despite the theme of mLab being media of the future, that clients did still want to use those traditional media vehicles. Can you make some observations on how you see the new media that was perhaps highlighted at mLab, how that fits into the broader media mix? When clients, to me, still want their 30-second TV ad, they maybe still want their full page in the Australian Women's Weekly, but it is exciting, all of the new things that are coming in. How do they fit into the broader mix?
Yeah, look, I mean, the traditional media, they've been around for years and years, and David's got a great example in the business he runs. Adshel is a great broadcast medium. You can reach lots and lots of people with a very powerful and simple message, and the reach is very effective. But at the same time, there's that desire, as we were just talking about, to add a layer of personalization. So what we're seeing more and more often from clients is trying to understand the right balance between that broadcast element where you've got mass media communication, which is potentially based on the interruption model of previous decades, moving to a more sort of personal layer of communication, which, as Jules pointed out, there's a younger generation that understands that value exchange between content and advertising.
Yep.
And I think the challenge that we face as marketers is finding the right balance. I think 100% of anything is generally not going to get you the right result. But if you can find the right ratio and the right balance, I don't think Jules would state that his business was a standalone marketing campaign, but it is a way of adding and amplifying and taking a big message that you've pushed into market and getting the consumer to really interact with that and try and work out how they can add to that with the influencers. So
exactly.
I think that the spot in the AFL Grand Final or the spot in the finale of The Block or My Kitchen Rules is still an incredibly powerful way to reach lots and lots of people.
Yes.
And it reaches people that might fall outside of your defined target audience.
Yes.
But it reaches a lot of people. And for a lot of consumer goods, we might target a core audience, but there is still usage outside of that. When we move into the more sort of, data-led layers of targeting, then we are hoping for a better outcome, but we are reaching a smaller group of people. So the efficacy of that advertising is going to be much stronger.
Exactly. So it's kind of the funnel, really, a different kind of funnel.
Absolutely. And TV is a great way of filling the top end of that funnel, as is outdoor and other broadcast media.
Exactly. Look, we've gone well over time. I said 10 to 15 minutes. We're at 18 minutes. I'm more than happy to keep talking if you guys have got some time. I'd like to talk about a little bit about what was on your radar this week in our media market, and then maybe talking a little bit about next week as well, what's going on. If you've got time, please hang around. If not, then feel free to drop out. This week, the week that was in our media week, last night I attended a speed networking or speed mentoring session for She Says, where I spoke to about 8 women about having careers in our market. It was really an interesting night, very well done by the She Says Sydney crew, and there are probably about 100 women there. Some other things on my radar this week could be the new mobile figures coming out through the IAB Nielsen, WPP increasing its stake in STW, and of course I have a new media agency, MediaScope, that reflects that. David, you've had a big week with the launch of Adshel Live today. How's that all gone out, and what's the feedback from the market?
The feedback's been fantastic, Rennie. Thank you for asking. Yeah, we're really pleased. We launched, had a launch event last night, which was attended by partners, and it was an extremely successful, I think, week for us. We've switched all the screens on time. They all work. That's all gone very well, and it's a proud moment for us. This is the first thing of its type that's been done in the world, because we're doing this across the country at the same time with the network.
How many screens in the network?
There are 270 screens across the country in 5 capital
buy it
cities.
Through Site Tour or one of the automated platforms. How is it actually bought?
So at the moment, the roadside network for us is bought in the conventional way. Pick up the phone, speak to one of your friendly sales reps here at Adshel, and they will give you a very good deal. But we'll clearly, the advent of digital does open up the channels to programmatic, and that's the next step for that work. Our programmatic restricted to our Sydney rail environment, but we are working in that space, and automation is clearly part of
and the OMA have a tender out at the moment for an automated platform for their members that will be announced, I think, in February, the winner of that tender. Apparently, they've had 20 applications from both local and overseas businesses. So I agree, a really interesting, fast-moving, exciting area. Jules, your week. Bit of action in the radio market. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's shifting chairs.
Rove in.
Rove in.
Out.
Yeah, little ripper. By 8 months, no one will remember that I was even in that slot. You
guys are a bit like politicians, aren't you? You kind of live and die by your numbers.
It's incredible, though. I mean, radio has just given the media landscape so much to feast on the last 3 years. Tomorrow we're going to the Radio Awards on the Gold Coast, and every year at this time it's just musical chairs. It's a fascinating industry, and I absolutely love it. I was speaking to Grant Blackley the other day, our new CEO, and he's been there a few months now, about some of his ambitions with innovation at the heart and soul of SCA and becoming more digital. But one thing that was interesting that we've been talking about is and I might be wrong, we're very much rushing towards digital, but we're also, with the news around ad blocking, it was interesting to chat to him about that we may be a little bit insulated, that, when we call the traditional, we're very quick to say traditional on TV and radio, but if they keep innovating, they can be as sharp as any new startup, even like Tribe, and if they're moving nimbly, I'll be interested to see if, there's a bit of money that keeps swirling around and digital does take a slight hit and a bit of that money does go back towards radio with advertising that cannot be blocked yet. No one's really blocking it. They had an opportunity to listen to CDs and streaming, but people want content and contests and personalities, and they're happy to sit in their car and listen to ads, which I find extraordinary, but it seems that people don't mind it.
Well said, Jules, and I agree. The digital media industry certainly has some challenges at the moment and some issues to face, and it'll be fascinating to see how that all plays out. Seb, your week, what's been on your radar this week?
Well, my week's been about catching up after a week at mLab, to be honest. So I've been bunkered down after having a fantastic time sort of being involved in this event to the sort of the reality of the real world. So I've been doing a lot of catching up, but the ad blocking, topic has come up, and it was covered at mLab as well. And I think, from our perspective, it's something that we need to be aware of. But at the moment, there's probably a lot of big numbers being flown around, but I haven't seen an Australia-only number. So I think our perspective is we recognise it's an issue that might be coming down the pipe, but at the same time, we want to put some sort of subjective and empirical evidence around it so we can get a proper view on what the real scale of the problem is, and then we can start to address it in a logical manner. Because at the moment, there's a lot of conjecture out there. So we're going to start undertaking tests to really understand what the problem means for Australian advertisers. And, once we understand that, we can start putting in place measures to try and counteract. But I think there's an interesting thing which goes back to Jules's comment earlier about, that value exchange between advertising and content. Well, if consumers are going to start blocking publishers' advertising, do they have the right to access that content? And I think that'll be an interesting development in how that paywall kind of concept develops over the next year or two.
And certainly the press seems to be saying that the ad blocking issue it's almost a good thing for the digital media industry, because it will encourage them or make them look at things like pop-ups, intrusive ads.
Behaviourally, yes. It'll change people's behaviour and decision-making, but I don't think it's great to lose confidence in not knowing exactly how many people are seeing your ads. That's the danger in it. When you're spending money on a publisher and you want to know that you're getting that reach, and the publisher's only way of really determining that is, it's clicks, but it's also, a reach of that page. If there's a bit of a grey area for that person to be able to measure exactly, because I'm not sure yet, and I'm still only learning about it, but I don't know if they can determine if someone at the other end has got that blocker on. I suspect they can, because then they can start to go out there and restrict other content like video content from them. But I would hate to see a moment where a publisher is going, we've got 35,000 views on our site this week, and then the advertising saying, well, how do you know? I don't think that's a good thing. I do think that, and as we all know, it doesn't take much to want to download an ad blocker. If you're trying to click off an ad that's in your way and the other one pops up and then the next one pops up and you're yelling at your screen, and I'm not talking us, because we understand the idea of value exchange, but other people, you just don't want to make it too easy. But it'll be an interesting one to watch. And I think it's more an education than anything. But I think if people are actually a bit wiser around the sort of, because the advertising industry got away with a lot. Like, it felt like they were exploiting to a point people's inability to use their tech, and it just, I don't know, it irritated people. And it's not, I've never thought that was a way to get a message across. When I'm screaming at a 30-second pre-roll, at a brand, not that pre-rolls are that bad if they're done with enough content and commerce, the good balance of entertainment, then I'll go out and search for those pre-rolls.
Well, I think all of it to me consequences of a huge business structure shift in the industry. And in some ways, publishers, they have to generate revenue. They have to do that by serving ads until they come up with another revenue model. We're seeing Fairfax now move into, they bought a cinema business last week. So they're certainly trying to diversify revenue streams. Somewhat restricted by our media ownership rules. Perhaps that's a discussion for another day, but that would certainly be inhibiting growth and inhibiting their...
I think, sorry, Dave, I think there is so much money involved in advertising that it's lucrative, and if there's a criminal force that wants to get behind it and use their skills and tech, they're going to carry on doing it. It's a little bit like the credit card industry, I think. There will always be credit card fraud, and people who run credit cards build that into a component of risk in their business. And I think advertising, especially in the digital area, is going to see a component of that. Criminals are going to invest in technology and hackers, and they will continue to develop stuff that beats whatever the ad market can develop to sort of stop the latest iteration. So I think there is a component of we're always going to face what the next ad fraud or ad blocking is, because technology just keeps driving that along.
Exactly.
I think let's go back to this point about permission, right? If the quality of the work is good enough, then you will give permission for that to be served. And I think what we're seeing is a reaction to the quality of the creative work that often appears online, which is not necessarily of the highest order. There was a very interesting, I thought, reaction from the creative community this week in the trade press that basically looked at ad blocking and said, well, this is just a call to raise our game. What we're doing is we're putting out too much stuff which is random and which is poorly executed. And consumers are saying, I've had enough of that. If you create good quality work, they'll welcome that in. They don't see it at that point. They stop seeing it as advertising. They start seeing it as content.
It's the Vogue effect that I think people talk about. The advertising is just as relevant as the content and just as desired as the content. Again, another issue there is, the creative industry is going through its own level of disruption. So getting, in some ways I see two things inhibiting the potential growth of the digital media industry. One is skill shortages, which I'm quite vocal about, and the other is the creative industry. Even though we can now track the customer journey and serve individual ads as people, they're on that customer journey. You have to have creative that's relevant to that. It'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out. The week ahead, AdTech meetup for me on Wednesday night, which is a community-based event for the Sydney-based AdTech community, a really terrific initiative by a couple of guys, Evgeny and Chris from SpotX. I'll be going to that on Wednesday night. And Thursday night, the MFA Awards. Yippee. Seb, I'm hoping you'll be there.
I'm not this year, actually. I can't make it, unfortunately. But I'll be sort of supporting Greg Graham, who is our new business and marketing director, but also the chair of the MFA Awards this year. So a big year for Sparrow, who I know a lot of people in the industry know well. So I think it'll be a great year, and they put an awful lot of effort into making sure that those awards sort of get the event that they deserve, because they are, I think, the pinnacle of the media awards in Australia.
Very good. It'll be a good night. Jules, your week ahead?
Well, a bit of a roadshow, pitching and presenting and going into further detail around Tribe. We're looking for pre-launch brands at the moment so that we can have some of the leading brands loaded for when we open the floodgates to the influencers when the app's ready. But most of that is born out of mLab. So last week was so valuable to us that a lot of the agencies have got in contact with us, Maxis and MediaCom. So we'll go up there and hopefully sit in a room, and a lot of those brands that wanted to connect with us, we can go into further detail and have a bit more of a meatier Q&A around how we can implement them. So, the agencies have been brilliant in coordinating all of that, and we just feel like we're, the first morning of Christmas, GroupM's like Santa Claus this week.
Well done, Seb. You need your red shirt on.
That's it.
Jules, that's great. I really wish you all the best with your new business, and you're very active in the market. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
David, your week ahead.
Yeah, very similar. Actually, it's very true that a week at mLab fills up your diary for weeks to come, and it's good news, right? So we've also got clearly a world first launch. Did I mention that?
I asked you.
So we've got that clearly to build on. So we're taking the story out around that, and it's stimulated a lot of debate in the market. So we've got a week of going out and talking to people about the capability of the network. Obviously, it's in 5 states. So you've got a lot of ground to cover, and then also trying to talk to the creative community around what digital roadside means for them, because it does. Again, it opens up a series of opportunities in terms of contextual relevance and dynamism that we want to start talking to that group of people around how they exploit to the max.
A receptive market, I think, for that kind of product at the moment. I just want to send a shout out to everyone who's watching. We're getting a couple of comments. Thank you, Michael Peterson, all the way from France, who's telling me I have a very nice shirt. I'm right on trend. Thank you. Who else? We've got Brand Ideas. He's saying he's giving us all a shout out. So thank you very much. Guys, we've gone for half an hour, so that's about, 15, 20 minutes over what I said we would originally do, but this was the first attempt. I think we've done okay.
We've done very well.
Great. Well done, Denise.
I was very nervous, so thank you. And I've been noticing while we're on that you can see my washing in the back.
Yeah, I saw that. While we're doing shout-outs, we should probably shout out to @SebRennie on Twitter, who you've tagged at MediaScope. He's a 17-year-old Scottish boy with the same name as Seb. He's wondering why is everyone talking to him and retweeting.
What is going on?
Oh, no. Well, hello, Seb. Seb, the advertising and media industry, we need good people like you. 17-year-old. See, skill shortages. I'm very active in that area. Thank you to Jules, David and Seb so much for joining me. There's been a little bit of discussion prior to this. The plan is to present this as a weekly Friday thing and just get some different people involved and just make it a really casual kind of thing. So thank you so much for joining me. I've been able to record this, so I'll be able to upload it on YouTube. I think I can convert it into a podcast, but I have to work out how to do that. But keep in touch with MediaScope's newsletter. and I'll point to it from there. So thank you again, everyone, so much for getting involved in this first MediaScope Friday roundup. I really appreciate your support. It's been great to speak with you. Now, how do we get off? I've got no idea.
I think we high five each other like this, Denise. 1, 2. Oh God, just as bad as in real life for me.
Marshall.
Thanks, team. Thanks, Denise. Well done.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Cheers.
Have a great weekend.
I'm giving Seb a pat on the head. Oh, we've lost Seb. Thanks so much, guys. Keep it. Bye, David. Thanks, everyone, for coming along. Same time next week, and I'll be putting this up on the MediaScope newsletter and MediaScope website. Thanks a lot. See you.